Anders, the stock is trading really strongly this morning. You're up really nicely. You're one of the best performing stocks in Europe today. A lot of what you said this morning kind of sounds cautious. What is it you think that people are seeing in the numbers that you've posted today and the outlook that you've posted today and the buyback that you've posted today that you think is encouraging people to buy the stock?
Good morning. I mean, overall, I would say that we deliver a solid quarter in a high activity and competitive market. And of course, starting from the top, order intake up 43% year over year, leading to a record high order backlog. And I think that's, of course, a strong message.
Are you concerned about increased competition? When I read about, for example, Nord Stream 2, it seems like there's going to be a lot more gas coming onshore in Europe. Does that cloud your outlook at all?
I think that we see a very strong commitment to renewable energy targets globally, and I mean, one such an example is, of course, in Europe, where the targets for 2030 has been raised from 27 to 32%. So, I mean, with the increased cost competitiveness for wind, and of course the concern on climate change, I must say that overall market outlook on targets for renewable auctions for renewable remains solid and leads to a high activity level in the market.
One of the things, Anders, that we've been looking at this morning is trying to get an understanding of how specifically and in kind of detail how the tariff story is going to affect your business. What is your view of the situation at the moment? How specific can you get in terms of an understanding of what it's going to mean?
No, but I mean, as you say, of course, it's really difficult to be specific in such a fluent and changing environment when it comes to tariffs. So, I mean, we are a global company. We are present in 80 countries. We have a global supply chain and a global manufacturing chain. So that is, of course, how we try to mitigate existing and potential tariffs and on different components. So, but as you say, to have a clear view of that is almost impossible, especially since it's changing fairly frequently.
Right. But if you look at the supply chain, if you look at how, for instance, you're sourcing materials, are you already seeing an effect coming through into some of your manufacturing plants?
No, I would say I mean the biggest effect, so to speak, short term for us that we've seen is, of course, the steel tariffs and of course the increased steel prices in the US. And as we said before, that has a very limited impact on us during this year because we work with different mechanisms to hedge the steel for our margins. But of course, looking forward, that potentially, of course, can have an impact on the cost for wind energy overall in markets with if we continue to see higher steel prices. The other tariffs, as I said, of course, we've seen this wave 1 and wave 2 being implemented, and of course, if components that we use get more expensive, that has a cost impact on the supply chain that we will have to try to mitigate. But to exactly pinpoint that in such a fluent environment is, of course, extremely cumbersome.
I remember a few months ago you got a big order, like $250 million, from a Turkish wind plant. How are you viewing your business? What kind of business do you have in Turkey right now, Anders, and how are you viewing the future of that?
I don't recognize really the order you talk about, but I mean, Turkey is one of the markets we have in Europe, and we've seen a fairly stable development there, even if it's been down, I would say down a bit recently. So I don't really recognize that order you talk about. So I think it's a market that came up and has now come down a bit.
All right. I see Borusan ENBW joint venture getting wind turbines, 138 megawatts, Kanakkale 72 megawatts, Kirkcaldy wind plants. Those are Turkish wind plants from Vestas for $240 million. If you don't see that, maybe the report was mistaken, but do you see the same kind of demand continuing in Turkey for wind energy that we have seen before this crisis?
I think those are not firm and unconditional orders from our point of view, and therefore not counted as of yet in our backlog. So that's probably why. But I mean, to your question, on Turkey in general, I think, as I said, I mean, we saw very high activity levels in Turkey also on the delivery side, probably more about a year and a half. I think with the introduction of auctions in Turkey, we've seen from a delivery point of view, Turkey has been down somewhat during the last year and a half, then compensated then by other markets in Europe. So I wouldn't say that we have any sort of big reliance on Turkey as a market overall at all.